Chosen one. Stop whatever you are doing right now. Heaven has pressed pause on your timeline. And this moment, yes, this very breath is not coincidence. It is divine interruption. God does not often speak this way. But when he does, it is because something in the unseen realm is shifting. The angels have been dispatched. The atmosphere around you is trembling. And all creation is holding its breath for what happens next. You have been chosen to hear what most hearts ignore. You are not random. You are not lost in the crowd. You are marked. Heaven's mark has been on you since before your first cry echoed in this world. Every battle, every betrayal, every quiet tear was known before it reached your cheek. You were designed for this exact moment in history. The reason you feel different, out of place, unseen by many, but heavily noticed by the unseen, it's because the seal of divine purpose burns on your spirit. Listen carefully. The things you've endured were never meant to destroy you. They were meant to define you. God has been watching, not from a distance, but from within every storm you've walked through. You have not been abandoned. You have been observed. The silence of heaven was never absence. It was divine strategy. Every delay was protection. Every closed door was redirection. And now, heaven is saying, it is time. You've been wondering why life seemed to slow down lately. Why people began to fade away. Why plans crumbled, even when you did everything right. It's because the noise had to be silenced for your spirit to finally hear this message. You have reached the threshold where the next decision will shift the trajectory of your life. And heaven cannot allow you to move forward without this word anchored in your heart. You are chosen, and you are being called higher. The ancient words remind us of this truth. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 42, verse 31. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not faint. These are not poetic lines. They are divine decrees. When you feel your strength fading, heaven commands new strength into your spirit. When your faith trembles, the wind of God lifts you higher. The eagle does not fear the storm, it rises upon it. And so will you. You, beloved, have been through seasons where hope felt foolish and faith felt empty. You prayed when nothing changed. You forgave when it broke you to do so. You kept loving when others chose hate. That wasn't weakness, it was spiritual warfare. Your endurance terrified darkness. Every time you refused to quit, another chain in the unseen realm shattered. And now, as heaven speaks, those fragments of your old battles are becoming the foundation stones of your new calling. Do not dismiss this as coincidence. Divine interruptions are rare. God doesn't speak like this every day. But he saw you, yes. You scrolling, searching, wondering if he still remembers you. This message is his reply. You have not been forgotten. Your name is still written in fire upon his hand. And this word is meant to wake the warrior inside you. So, chosen one, take a deep breath. Feel the weight of his gaze upon you. Everything around you might look ordinary, but in the spiritual realm, the trumpet is sounding. Heaven is gathering. You are standing at the edge of destiny. And before you step, heaven asks only this: remember who you are. And whose you are, this is not the time to hide your light. This is the time to rise, to speak, to move as one who knows they are chosen by God. Lift your head, your story is not over. The same God who parted seas and raised the dead still moves through those who say yes. Let your yes echo today. If this message touches your spirit, do not let it pass in silence. Light responds to action. Declare your alignment by sharing this word so another chosen one can awaken. Leave a comment below. Let the heavens see your response. Type 77 as a prophetic act, declaring, I am ready to soar. And if your heart knows this message was meant for you, subscribe now. Stay connected to the voice that reminds you of who you truly are, because this is only the beginning, and heaven has much more to say. Chosen one, the mark upon your life is older than the earth itself. Before the stars took their first breath, before the oceans roared their first sound, God already whispered your name. You were not conceived by accident, nor shaped by human decision. You were carved out of divine intention. You were marked by heaven. You have felt this mark your entire life, though you may not have known how to name it. It's that holy discontent that burns inside you when others are satisfied with less. It's the quiet ache you feel when you see injustice, the restlessness that stirs when you sense you were made for something more. That is the signature of heaven, the imprint of eternity stamped upon your mortal soul. Others have seen glimpses of it. They've misunderstood it as arrogance or strangeness, not realizing that your spirit does not fit in earthly molds. You were never designed to blend in. You were crafted to stand out. Your difference is not a defect, it's divine evidence. Every chosen vessel carries a seal, invisible to the natural eye, but unmistakable in the spiritual realm. That is why opposition finds you. That is why peace sometimes flees you. Darkness recognizes your light even before you recognize it yourself. Beloved, understand this. The mark of heaven both attracts favor and stirs warfare. To be chosen is to be targeted. The moment God places his seal upon you, every opposing force notices. You may have wondered why relationships crumble when you start to grow, why opportunities close just as you approach breakthrough, why peace feels fragile in seasons of progress. It's because the enemy cannot stand the sound of destiny awakening. But here's what the enemy forgets, what God marks. No darkness can erase what heaven seals. No hell can unseal. The mark upon you is eternal ink, written in grace and sealed with fire. That is why your spirit keeps surviving what was meant to destroy you. It's not luck, it's divine preservation. You've been carried through battles that should have buried you, through nights that should have broken you. You are still here because your purpose cannot die before it's fulfilled. Heaven has been investing in you quietly, shaping you in obscurity while the world was distracted. There were moments you thought you were being punished when, in truth, you were being purified. Every disappointment, every delay was chiseling you into someone capable of carrying greater glory. Your wounds have become altars where heaven meets earth. As the Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 5, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as prophet. These ancient words are not limited to Jeremiah. They echo through every chosen heart. God knew you long before you could ever know him. You are not a random soul wandering through chaos. You are a divine assignment wrapped in human form. Let that truth settle into your bones. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. Every delay, every confusion, every detour was part of divine timing. You were not being denied. You were being aligned. The mark of heaven ensures that your path cannot mimic another's. That is why comparison only steals your peace, because your design was never meant to compete, only to complete what heaven began. You carry something rare, something costly. That is why the journey has been hard. Diamonds are not born in comfort, they are born in pressure. You have endured pressure that others couldn't survive because your calling demands it. What crushed them only carved you. What burned others refined you. You were never meant to escape the fire. You were meant to emerge from it shining. Chosen one. Remember this when loneliness whispers and when fear taunts. You are seen. You are sealed. And you are still standing, because heaven has a claim on you. There are scrolls written about your life that hell cannot access. Your steps are ordered. Your days are counted. Your mark is recognized in both realms. So walk with quiet confidence. The world may not understand your journey, but the heavens celebrate every step. You are not walking alone. You are walking under divine surveillance. Angels have guarded your path when you didn't even know danger was near. Every time you should have fallen, unseen hands lifted you. Every time you cried out, heaven recorded the sound. You were marked, beloved. And that mark is not a burden, it's a banner. Wear it with reverence. Walk in it with humility. Speak from it with authority. For what is upon you is not ordinary, it is eternal. And as long as that seal burns upon your spirit, nothing and no one can cancel the destiny written in your name. Chosen one. What you've faced has not been random. The strange heaviness, the sudden battles, the resistance that comes when you try to rise, it is not bad luck. It is warfare. You have been standing in a hidden battle that began long before you were born. The moment heaven marked you, darkness noticed. From that day, every attempt to silence you, to distract you, to make you doubt your worth, has been part of that unseen conflict for your destiny. This battle doesn't take place on visible fields. It rages in the mind, in the spirit, in the unseen chambers of your heart. You felt it in those nights of unexplained fear, in those moments when hope dimmed without reason. You fought invisible storms, and yet you still rise every morning. That alone is proof of divine backing. Understand this: when your life carries purpose, opposition becomes inevitable. You were never meant to live in spiritual neutrality. Your presence is disruptive to darkness. That's why people sometimes turn against you for no reason. That's why peace seems to vanish when you approach a breakthrough. The closer you get to your promise, the louder hell becomes. The Spirit revealed this pattern long ago. It was proclaimed in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 3, verse 12. Everyone who wants to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. This is not a punishment, it is confirmation. Persecution, rejection, and resistance are the proof of your progress. The enemy does not chase the silent, he chases the chosen. But here's what the adversary doesn't understand: you were built for battle. Every attack that was meant to destroy you has instead strengthened your discernment. You have learned to recognize darkness not by fear but by light. You can feel spiritual shifts others ignore. You can sense danger before it arrives. Not because you are paranoid, but because your spirit has been trained in the war room of experience. Think about it. How many times have you felt drained for no reason? How often have you sensed tension in a room without a word spoken? You are sensitive to spiritual atmospheres because your calling requires it. This sensitivity is not a curse, it's your radar. You carry heaven's awareness inside a human body. There have been moments you thought you were losing your mind. But what was really happening was your spirit detecting conflict that your eyes could not see. The confusion, the fatigue, the waves of doubt, they were not weakness. They were warfare. And through it all, you have endured because divine strength kept you upright. Chosen one, understand this. Darkness only fights what threatens it. The warfare around your life is evidence of your value. You are a key player in a battle that decides destinies. That is why distractions appear right before divine assignments. That is why emotional storms rise when spiritual doors open. The enemy knows he cannot remove your calling, so he tries to exhaust your focus. But every time you choose prayer over panic, every time you choose faith over fear, you win ground. You've already survived what others couldn't handle. You have stood in storms that would have broken the average soul. The fact that you are still here, reading these words, proves that the fire did not consume you, it refined you. So lift your head. You are not cursed, you are commissioned. You are not under attack because you are weak. You are under attack because you are powerful. Every trial has been sharpening your spiritual sword. Every tear has been watering the ground of your next victory. The time has come to stop questioning your worth and start recognizing your weapon. Your worship is warfare. Your obedience is strategy. Your faith is fire. Every time you speak light, hell trembles. Every time you forgive, heaven expands its territory through you. You have fought silently long enough. Now, let heaven hear your agreement. Write these words below. I hear you. When you type that, you are not commenting for attention. You are declaring alignment. You are acknowledging that your ears are open. Your heart is ready, and your spirit refuses to sleep through destiny. It's a prophetic act of surrender and strength, all at once. Say it with conviction, because when heaven sees your obedience in something small, it begins to trust you with something great. This is how chosen ones move from hearing to obeying, from surviving to conquering, from battle to breakthrough. So, chosen one, lift your eyes. The fight is not against you, it's for what's inside you. You carry something eternal, something that terrifies darkness and inspires angels. You are not losing ground, you are gaining wisdom. The battlefield has been your classroom, and your scars are now your credentials. Walk forward knowing this. You are not just surviving a hidden war, you are shifting the atmosphere around you. Every step you take in faith echoes in eternity. You may be unseen by men, but you are celebrated in heaven. Chosen one. You remember the years when heaven was quiet, the prayers that rose like smoke but seemed to vanish in the air, the worship that echoed into silence, the waiting that grew heavier with time. Those were your silent years, the seasons when it felt like God had stepped back, leaving you suspended between promise and fulfillment. But hear this clearly, his silence was not rejection, it was refinement. You were not being ignored. You were being prepared. Silence is one of heaven's most powerful languages. It is the language of shaping, of pruning, of making you fit to carry what you once only dreamed about. When heaven goes quiet, the noise of the world begins to fade, and what remains is the raw sound of your own heart. In that sacred stillness, motives are tested, desires are exposed, and faith is stripped of its comfort until only trust remains. You see, when you first began to walk with God, Your prayers were answered quickly. You spoke, and doors opened. You asked, and provision came. But as you grew, the quick answers slowed. Not because he stopped listening, but because he started trusting you with silence. A child cries for attention. A warrior stands still and listens. The silence was heaven's way of promoting you from one to the other. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 27, verse 14, "Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord." These words were not written by someone who never knew silence. They were born out of years of exile, betrayal, and divine pauses. David understood that waiting is not inactivity, it is a form of warfare. Every time you waited without giving up, you were fighting hell with hope. The silent years are dangerous because they expose what you truly believe. When miracles are visible, it's easy to worship, but when heaven closes its mouth, only real faith remains. And chosen one, you did not collapse in that silence. You stayed. You kept going, even when the light dimmed. That is why you are still marked. That is why heaven can trust you now with the words you once longed to hear. Do you remember how isolation wrapped around you like a cloak? People misunderstood your quiet seasons. They thought you were retreating, when in truth, you were in training. Heaven was teaching you to move without applause, to believe without proof, to hear without sound. The silence was your classroom. And now you understand what few ever do, that God's stillness is not the end of his voice, but the beginning of your discernment. In those years, your heart was rewired. The desperation that once sought answers began to seek presence. The impatience that demanded signs learned to rest in peace. You began to love the giver more than the gifts. That was the transformation the silence was designed to bring. When you look back now, you can see it. The very prayers that seemed unanswered were answered differently. The doors that didn't open were never meant for you. The people who left were protecting your peace without knowing it. Every no from heaven was making room for a greater yes. Now, chosen one. Never mistake quietness for abandonment. The God who seemed silent was writing your story in invisible ink. Only now, under the light of time, does it begin to appear. Every waiting season carries a hidden prophecy. You were not waiting for God. He was waiting for you to grow into the version of yourself that could handle his promise. There's a beauty in holy stillness. It's not the absence of movement, but the presence of unseen preparation. Just as seeds break beneath the soil before they bloom, so your spirit broke in the silence to birth strength. You have been buried. Yes, but buried things grow. Now, you can feel the shift. The silence that once felt suffocating now feels sacred. You no longer need constant reassurance, because you've learned to rest in his nature, not his noise. That is maturity. That is what the chosen must learn before the next command comes. So when silence visits again, and it will, do not panic. Remember this moment. Remember how stillness once felt like punishment, but became the proving ground of your faith. When heaven pauses, hell assumes you are finished. But that pause is the sound of God, sharpening your next instruction. Keep this truth engraved within you. Divine silence is not empty, it is full of forming. You were not forgotten in those quiet years. You were being written into eternity's story. And now, as heaven begins to speak again, you are ready to hear what only silence could prepare you for. Chosen one. When light meets resistance, The air around you changes. The moment you begin to rise, shadows start to shift. It's not because you are doing something wrong, it's because your light is doing something right. The brighter you shine, the more clearly darkness sees you. But hear me, light was never meant to hide. You felt it, haven't you? The heaviness that comes right after breakthrough, the strange pressure that visits when you finally begin to feel joy again. It's not coincidence. It's the collision of two realms, light pushing through the last layers of darkness that once claimed you. Every time you choose faith when fear knocks, you pierce the veil between heaven's intention and earth's resistance. Imagine this. Your life is a lighthouse on a stormy coast. Ships lost in the waves of despair search for a signal, and when your light appears, they steer toward hope. But do you know what else that light attracts? The attention of the wind, the waves, and sometimes the very darkness you're trying to guide others out of. That's why storms rise when you shine. Yet, without your light, those lost souls would remain adrift. So, even when the wind howls, keep the flame alive. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. These words are not just history, they are strategy. When you stand still in the middle of your storm, it's not weakness, it's warfare. Your stillness becomes your sword. Your peace becomes your weapon. Every calm breath is a declaration that says, I am not afraid. Enter, chosen one. You must understand this spiritual law. Light and resistance are partners in your growth. Without resistance, your glow would remain small. Without opposition, your authority would stay shallow. Just as muscles need tension to grow, your faith needs pressure to mature. That's why God didn't remove the storm. He empowered you to stand in it. The people who misunderstand you are part of that refining wind. They don't see the oil burning inside you. They only see the fire. But you were never called to be understood. You were called to illuminate. Every word spoken against you has become kindling for your next flame. Every betrayal has pressed you deeper into purpose. The enemy wanted you to dim your light. Instead, you learned how to burn brighter. And now, as you walk through this phase, heaven is watching to see how you carry your radiance. Will you hide it for comfort, or hold it high for impact? Remember, even the smallest candle defeats the deepest night. You may not feel strong, but the darkness fears you anyway. When you share light, it multiplies. When you speak hope, it echoes. The words you carry are not just for you, they're for others who stand where you once stood. Maybe they've been silent too long. Maybe they've stopped believing that God still sees them. But when you open your mouth, heaven moves through it. So, let your voice carry this message further. Like seeds scattered by the wind, your simple act of sharing can reach souls you'll never meet. Maybe someone scrolling in despair will see it. Pause and remember that God has not forgotten them. Maybe your share becomes their turning point. If this word has stirred something deep in you, if it reminded you that your battles were never proof of failure, but signs of your light, then pass it on. Let it travel beyond this moment. Gently, quietly, authentically. Hit that like, not as a gesture of habit, but as a whisper that says, I agree with heaven. Share it not for numbers, but for names. Names written in pain, who need to be reminded that the storm has an end. And if this message has met you at the right moment, subscribe. Not for me, but to stay connected to the river that refreshes your soul. Each word that flows from this space is crafted to keep your flame alive. Think of it like tending a garden. You water what grows you. You nurture what keeps your spirit awake. That's all this is: watering your faith, tending your hope, strengthening your light. You are not alone in your resistance. Every chosen one faces the friction of rising, but the same fire that tries to consume you will one day illuminate your crown. Keep standing in the storm. Keep glowing through the resistance, because the light you carry is not borrowed, it is born from the eternal flame of God Himself. And when darkness tries to whisper that you're losing, remind it of this truth. Light doesn't fight darkness, it simply shines, and darkness disappears. Chosen one, you were never ordinary. You've always felt the pull of something beyond what others could see. Even as a child, there was a quiet knowing, a sense that your path would not be simple or small. You carried questions that others didn't ask, felt storms others couldn't feel, and loved in ways that cost you more than anyone ever knew. You are not here by coincidence. You are evidence of divine craftsmanship. There were seasons when you wondered why life seemed harder for you than for others, why people left without explanation, why doors opened for everyone else but stayed shut for you, why you always felt a step out of rhythm, a heartbeat away from belonging. But what if all those unanswered whys were the whispers of heaven saying, "You were never meant to blend in," according to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. These words are your compass, because what you couldn't understand back then was never meant to be explained, it was meant to be experienced. Heaven trains its warriors through mystery, not clarity. Think of a blacksmith shaping a sword, fire and hammer. Again and again, every strike feels violent, but each one strengthens the blade. That was your story. God didn't leave you in the fire to destroy you. He left you there until you could hold the edge of purpose without shattering. Even your sensitivity, the way you feel deeply, love deeply, hurt deeply is not weakness. It's divine design. The same heart that feels pain so easily also feels the presence of God so purely. You see things others overlook because you were created to perceive both the wounds and the wonders of the world. That awareness is what qualifies you to carry light where others only see shadow. You are not too much. You are exactly enough for the mission assigned to you. Your empathy is not a burden, it's your weapon. Your tears are not wasted. They water the seeds of miracles yet to bloom. You were built to carry more because you are called to impact more. And yes, that calling comes with weight, but the same hands that placed it on your shoulders are the ones strengthening you to bear it. When you walk into rooms, the atmosphere shifts. When you speak, hearts listen, even if words aren't spoken. You bring peace where there was confusion, clarity where there was chaos. That's not personality, that's presence. The light of God within you is too radiant to go unnoticed. That's why some people can't handle your energy. It confronts the darkness they've made peace with. But don't dim yourself to make others comfortable. You are not called to be liked. You are called to be light. Look at your scars. Chosen one. Each one is a testimony. The things that should have broken you only built you. The ones who walked away only cleared space for divine connections. Every no was a redirection toward your true assignment. You are walking proof that grace can turn ashes into crowns. And now, heaven is calling for acknowledgement, not in words alone, but in faith, right here, in this sacred moment. Let your heart answer. Type 999 inches, the comments below. Why that number? Because it symbolizes completion. Heaven's whisper that what once felt unfinished is coming full circle. It's your declaration that you understand now. Nothing was wasted. Every pain had purpose. Every tear was sacred. When you write that number, don't do it for display. Do it as a seal, a spiritual signature saying, I trust the process. You are telling heaven that you no longer resist your uniqueness. You embrace it. You are saying, I may not have understood it all, but I still believe. Then, this is not a performance. It's an act of alignment. You're letting heaven know that you're ready for what's next, that you've accepted your difference as your design, your pain as your preparation, and your story as your strength. You, chosen one, are living proof that God still creates masterpieces out of mystery. You were never ordinary because the God who formed you is anything but ordinary. Keep walking in that truth. The world doesn't need another imitation. It needs your authentic light. You were made to disturb darkness and awaken sleeping hearts. That is why you feel everything so deeply, because you were created to heal what others can't even see. So stand tall. Carry your uniqueness like a crown. Let your light stretch beyond what's comfortable, because heaven has already called your name. And the world is about to see why you were set apart. Chosen one. Sometimes the breaking had to come before the building. There was no other way. You prayed for strength, but heaven gave you struggle. You asked for growth. But heaven sans pain. It wasn't cruelty, it was construction. You cannot build divine foundations on untested ground. What broke you was not meant to bury you, it was meant to rebuild you. You didn't just survive those nights, you were remade in them. The pieces that fell apart were the ones that couldn't go with you into your next season. You see, the breaking was never about destruction. It was about revelation. God had to show you what was fragile so that he could replace it with what was eternal. Every disappointment carried divine intention. Every betrayal carried hidden protection. When the people you trusted walked away, heaven whispered, now I can take their place. When the plans you thought were perfect fell apart, God was removing walls that blocked your expansion. Pain became the hand of God, carving away what could not endure the weight of your future. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Isaiah. Chapter 66, verse 9. Do I bring to the moment of birth and not give delivery, says the Lord? Do I close up the womb when I bring to delivery? This promise is a question to your soul. The answer is clear. God does not begin what he does not intend to finish. If he allowed the breaking, it's because he is preparing the birthing. The shattering was the signal of transition. You weren't losing yourself, you were shedding what was never meant to stay. Like a vessel placed in fire, you were being refined, not reduced. The cracks in your heart were not signs of failure. They were the places where divine light began to pour through. You must understand something sacred. In heaven's architecture, nothing is wasted. Even the rubble of your past pain becomes the material for your new strength. The tears you shed in secret watered the soil of your next season. The silence that used to torment you has now become your sanctuary. You are walking proof that breaking is not the end. It is the beginning of becoming. Remember how you felt when everything started to crumble, when prayers went unanswered, when support vanished, when your heart carried more weight than your words could express. You thought God had left you, but in truth, He was closer than ever. He was the hand holding you through the collapse, guiding you toward a version of yourself you hadn't yet met. Breaking reveals foundations. It shows what you've been standing on. When everything comfortable is stripped away, you discover what's eternal. That's when faith stops being a concept and becomes your oxygen. You learn to breathe without control, to love without guarantees, to trust without proof. Those are lessons only the broken understand. Your spirit remembers those moments, the sleepless nights, the quiet prayers, the surrender that came not from strength, but from exhaustion. And yet, even when you had nothing left to give, you still whispered, "God, I'm still here." That whisper shook the heavens. It became the seed of your rebuilding. Now, you carry wisdom that can't be taught in comfort. You have compassion that only broken hearts can hold. When you speak now, you don't speak from theory, you speak from resurrection. That's why your words carry weight. People feel your truth, even if they don't understand your process. The building has already begun. You might not see walls yet, but the foundation has shifted. Every act of forgiveness, every moment of patience, every choice to believe. Again, it's all construction. You are being rebuilt from the inside out. The structure heaven is raising within you will not collapse under pressure because it's built on what survived the storm. Do not mourn the pieces that fell away. Some seasons are meant to break what pride built so that humility can rise. Some dreams must die so that destiny can breathe. The pain you've endured has given you a perspective that pure success never could. You've learned to see God not only in miracles but also in messes. You, chosen one, are not fragile anymore. You've been through too much fire to fear the flames. You've learned that breaking was never the opposite of blessing, it was the doorway to it. The same hammer that shattered you has shaped you into something unbreakable. So walk in quiet strength. You don't need to prove how much you've healed. Your peace will prove it for you. The world may only see the calm, but heaven sees the architecture of grace rising within you. Chosen one. The wilderness you walked through was not punishment, it was preparation. Heaven does not send its soldiers untrained. Every delay, every loss, every lonely season you endured was heaven's secret training ground. You were being shaped in silence, not for survival, but for stewardship. What God plans to entrust to you requires a depth that can only be learned in obscurity. When everything you depended on vanished, you were not forgotten. You were enrolled in divine discipline. The lonely places, the hidden seasons, the unanswered prayers, they were not signs that God had withdrawn. They were lessons in reliance. Heaven was stripping away everything that could compete with His voice, so that when He speaks now, you will recognize Him instantly. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 2. Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years, to humble and test you, in order to know what was in your heart. That verse was written for those who walk through deserts and wonder why the road is so long. God tests not to fail you, but to reveal you, to show you what you carry and what you still need to surrender. In the wilderness, the applause stops. The crowd fades. What remains is you and the one who called you. That's where your identity stops being borrowed and starts being built. You stop performing and start becoming. The fire of trials burns away the false layers until only truth stands. That's why isolation has been your most sacred classroom. It taught you authenticity. Do you remember the silence of those nights when your prayers felt like whispers into the wind? Heaven was closer than you thought. Every tear you shed became a line in your training manual. You were learning endurance in the dark. You were being refined to lead without needing to be seen, to love without expecting return, to serve without seeking recognition. Those are the qualities heaven looks for before entrusting power. The wilderness exposed your weaknesses, but it also revealed your resilience. You learned how to keep moving with nothing but faith as your map. You discovered that God provides differently in deserts, sometimes not abundance, but enough. Not overflowing blessings, but daily manna. You learned to be content with just enough light for the next step. That, beloved, is divine maturity. Every warrior of purpose has a wilderness. Moses had Midian. David had caves. Elijah had a mountain. Jesus himself had 40 days of hunger and temptation. You are not the exception. You are in good company. The hidden seasons are proof of divine calling. God hides what he values most. That's why the rarest jewels are found deep beneath the surface. You've spent years feeling like no one sees you, like your efforts go unnoticed. But heaven has kept detailed record. Every time you chose integrity when no one was watching, the angels took note. Every time you kept faith after disappointment, the heavens rejoiced. The wilderness also taught you silence, not as weakness, but as wisdom. You learned that not every truth needs defending. Not every wound needs explanation. You began to see that peace is stronger than reaction. That's how generals are trained, by restraint, not by retaliation. Chosen one, you may not realize it, but your spiritual muscles have grown. You've learned to discern atmospheres, to feel when grace lifts, to move when heaven nudges. You've learned timing, the rhythm of divine seasons. Those are lessons only solitude can teach. Now, you stand at the edge of transition. The wilderness is releasing you, but not without the lessons it gave. You have learned what few ever do, that destiny is not found in comfort, but in obedience. You have seen how heaven hides power in patience. And you have discovered that those who walk through deserts with worship leave trails for others to follow. So do not despise where you've been. The sand beneath your feet holds testimony. The dry places have become holy ground. You were not wandering, you were being led. Every turn, every pause, every closed path had purpose. God has been teaching you how to hear his whisper amid the noise, how to walk by faith when sight is stolen. You are emerging now, not fragile, but forged. You are coming out of the wilderness, carrying the fragrance of wisdom and the authority of endurance. You don't just know about God anymore, you know him. That's what the wilderness gives, revelation through relationship. And when the world finally sees what heaven has been shaping, they will call it sudden. But you and heaven will know it was years in the making. The wilderness was your training ground, your hidden garden of strength. And now, it's time to step forward, not as one who survived, but as one who has been strategically prepared, chosen one. There are moments when everything aligns, when your spirit feels a pulse you cannot explain, when time slows, as if heaven is holding its breath. This is one of those moments. You stand inside a prophetic alignment, a divine intersection between what was promised and what is about to unfold. Everything that once seemed delayed was never denied. It was being aligned. What you are sensing right now is not imagination. It's confirmation. The people who were meant to stay are finding their way back. The doors that refused to open are beginning to turn on invisible hinges. The peace that once felt distant is gently returning. Heaven is moving behind the scenes, rearranging circumstances to fit the blueprint written long before your first heartbeat. You have spent years thinking you missed your timing. You've looked at others and thought their stories moved faster. Their blessings came easier. But what you didn't see was how heaven was adjusting your steps to match divine precision. Some paths could not open because the people or places involved were not yet ready to receive you. The alignment was still in progress. The Spirit spoke through the Apostle Paul in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that, in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. That verse is not wishful thinking, it's a spiritual law. Everything, even the broken pieces, works together in harmony when heaven calls the rhythm. You see, alignment doesn't happen by speed, it happens by surrender. You could not rush what was sacred. The pauses in your journey were not punishment, they were protection. God was ensuring that when the pieces came together, they would stay together. What arrives prematurely falls apart easily. But what comes in divine timing remains unshakable. Look back for a moment. How many times did something fall apart, only for you to realize later that it saved you? How many rejections protected you from roads that would have destroyed your peace? That was alignment in disguise. Heaven was working in reverse, rewriting outcomes before you even saw the danger. You are standing now where past confusion begins to make sense. What used to hurt now humbles you. What once broke you now builds you. You're beginning to see that God never wasted a single tear, never ignored a single prayer. Each one became a thread in the tapestry of your destiny. Alignment feels like peace after storms. It's the quiet awareness that things are finally connecting. You're starting to feel the shift, aren't you? Opportunities that used to pass you by now pause in front of you. Conversations that once drained you now bring clarity. You are no longer chasing what isn't yours. You are magnetizing what was meant for you. Heaven has synchronized your steps. Even your mistakes are being woven into divine redemption. That's the beauty of grace. It turns missteps into momentum. Every wrong turn led you here. Every detour taught you direction. Nothing is wasted in the hands of the Almighty, chosen one. This is not just a season of alignment, it's a season of activation. Heaven is not merely arranging things around you, it's awakening things within you. The gifts you buried under fear are stirring. The dreams you shelved are whispering again. The courage you thought you lost is rising from the ashes. What once felt disconnected is clicking into divine order. So take this moment, not as coincidence, but as confirmation. Heaven doesn't waste words. And you are not reading this by chance. You've reached the intersection of preparation and promise, and the signal has turned green. It's time to move forward, not by striving, but by flowing. You are not forcing alignment, you are walking in it. Pause here for a heartbeat. Feel the stillness in your chest. That peace you sense right now, it's not temporary. It's the sound of heaven saying, you're in the right place, at the right time, for the right reason. Let your spirit respond. Type, I receive, on when you write those two words. You're not responding to me, you're responding to heaven. It's your agreement with divine timing. It's your way of saying, I stop striving. I start trusting. You're acknowledging that the chaos you survived was the road that led to this calm. Say it with sincerity. Chosen one, because your agreement unlocks acceleration. The moment you align your words with heaven's will, doors begin to move, hearts begin to soften, and everything you lost begins to find its way back, not as it was, but as it should be. This is your prophetic alignment. Heaven has turned its face toward you. Walk with peace, because every step you take from here is guided by unseen hands that never missed a beat. The song of your destiny is playing again, and this time, you are perfectly in tune. Chosen one. There is a sound that breaks through chaos, a whisper that cuts through storms. It isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. But when you hear it, something in you stands still. It is the voice within the storm, the voice of God speaking not to your ears, but to your soul. You've heard it before, though you might not have recognized it. It came in moments of stillness when the world was loud. It came through the ache that refused to let you quit. Sometimes, it sounded like your own thoughts. Other times, like the echo of peace after tears. But that was him, the one who still speaks through winds and wounds alike. The ancient words tell us in the book of 1 Kings, chapter 19, verse 12, "And after the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire, and after the fire came a gentle whisper." That whisper, that is where he lives. Not in the noise of panic or the roar of confusion, but in the calm after the shaking, when your heart grows quiet enough to listen. That's when the divine instruction comes. The storm is never random. It is heaven's amplifier. When you can't hear God in comfort, he lets the winds rise so that his whisper becomes unmistakable. The thunder doesn't come to destroy. It clears the air so that revelation can flow freely again. You felt like you were drowning in waves that kept rising higher, but you didn't notice you were learning to breathe differently. You were learning that peace isn't the absence of a storm, it's the presence of the one who stands above it. Think of your life like a ship sailing through rough seas. The storm doesn't mean you've lost direction, it means your destination has weight. Empty ships don't attract tempests. The winds rise because what you're carrying matters, and in the noise of crashing waves, God leans closer, whispering your next coordinates, teaching you to steer by faith, not by sight. Chosen one. When your heart races and your mind feels tangled, remember, he is not shouting over the chaos. He is whispering beneath it. The world tells you to shout back, to fight louder, to move faster. But heaven says, be still. Because when you're still, you can finally hear instruction instead of interference. Maybe that's why this message found you now. The noise around you has been deafening lately. Expectations, opinions, confusion, fatigue. But in this quiet space, heaven wanted your attention. He doesn't need the crowd's volume to reach you. He just needs your surrender. Listen, can you sense it? That soft urging inside you to release what you can't control, to forgive what still hurts, to rest instead of react. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. The whisper is not commanding you to do more. It's inviting you to trust more. When you begin to listen again, life shifts. You start to see patterns in what once felt random. You begin to understand that the closed doors were protection, not rejection. The delays were direction, not denial. The whisper interprets what the storm once distorted And when you truly hear it, something happens. You find rest without answers. That's the kind of peace the world cannot manufacture. That peace rebuilds what fear dismantled. It steadies your hands, clears your sight, and teaches you how to walk through life as one who knows they are guided, even when they don't know where the next step leads. You are not meant to fight every storm. Some storms are meant to fight for you. They clear paths, realign hearts, and reveal who stands with you when the wind blows hardest. The same storm that tried to drown you will one day become your testimony of how you learned to walk on water. And when you rise from this moment, when the whisper finally settles in your heart and the storm begins to fade, remember to let your light ripple outward. If this word spoke to something deep within you, if it reminded you of who guides your ship through every season, then let it continue beyond you. Click like, not for me, but as an anchor of agreement, as if you're saying, I hear the whisper, I choose peace. End as share it. Like a lantern passed through dark waters, guiding someone else who's still caught in their storm. You never know whose night your small flame could end. And if your spirit feels connected to this voice, subscribe, not as routine, but as covenant to stay near words that steady your soul. We share light, not noise. We plant hope, not hype. This is not just a message, it's a movement of hearts learning to listen again. So breathe. Chosen one. The storm has done its part. The whisper remains. Let it guide you quietly, faithfully, until your soul remembers. You were never lost. You were simply being led through the sound of grace. Chosen one. There comes a time in every journey when mercy pauses, not because it ceases to exist, but because heaven wants to awaken awareness in you. This is that moment, the solemn threshold where God's gentleness meets His justice. You have walked through grace that covered, love that shielded, and forgiveness that waited. But even mercy, as boundless as it is, has its appointed seasons. This is not a threat, it's a holy warning spoken from love. God's patience is not permission. The delays of discipline are not approval of disobedience. There are moments when heaven stops intervening, allowing you to see what life feels like without its shelter, not to destroy you, but to remind you how much you need Him. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 32, verse 8, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. Notice the tenderness in those words, the promise of guidance wrapped in watchful mercy. But look closely, for behind them lies an unspoken truth. If you ignore the guidance, you also step outside the gaze. Chosen one. You've felt this before, the unease after a compromise, the restlessness after disobedience. The spirit inside you has always been faithful to nudge you, to trouble your peace when you drift too far. That discomfort is not condemnation, it's conviction. It's the divine alarm meant to keep your soul awake. God's mercy has carried you through countless storms. It has covered mistakes that could have destroyed you. But there comes a point when mercy steps aside to let maturity take its place. Heaven does not want you to live on survival grace forever. You are being called to responsibility, to stewardship of your anointing. You see, grace saves you from sin, but obedience keeps you from cycles. Many live forgiven, yet bound because they never transition from mercy to maturity. They keep repeating lessons that heaven already passed them through. But you, chosen one, You are being called higher. You are being invited to outgrow what once comforted you, but now confines you. The moment mercy steps back, discipline steps forward, not as punishment, but as preparation. God disciplines those he loves because he sees what they're meant to carry. He cannot allow a vessel destined for greatness to stay fragile. The pruning may sting, but it's shaping you for permanence. Think of a tree. When the gardener prunes it, it bleeds. Branches fall. The shape changes. But what feels like loss is actually multiplication in disguise. Every cut makes space for greater fruit. Every removal strengthens the roots. That's what God is doing in you, cutting away distractions, habits, and relationships that drain your destiny. Don't run from the pruning. Don't resist the pause. If heaven feels quiet right now, it's not because you're abandoned, it's because you're being inspected. The next stage of your calling requires precision. God is measuring your obedience, not your emotions. He's asking, will you trust me when I stop explaining? And though this section of the journey may feel lonely, remember, you are not being punished. You are being purified. The hand that withholds is the same hand that once healed. The silence that stings today will one day speak as testimony. Look back for a moment. Every time mercy paused before, you eventually understood why. You saw how discipline restored what indulgence had damaged. You saw how conviction brought clarity. You saw how his no protected you from counterfeit blessings. This is another one of those times. Heaven is not angry with you. Heaven is serious about you. You've reached a stage where casual faith won't carry you anymore. You must choose depth over distraction, obedience over opinion, truth over convenience. The tone of heaven now is not wrath, it's urgency. The kind that says, come closer before distance becomes normal. Don't ignore that pull in your chest. Don't silence that small inner voice that says, you know, this isn't who you are meant to be. That's the Spirit's final tug before the next refining fire begins. Chosen one. Take heart. Mercy stepping back does not mean mercy is gone. It means God trusts you enough to walk wisely. You have matured to a level where your choices echo louder than your words. The way you respond now determines the kind of authority you will walk in later. So pause, reflect, realign. Let repentance refresh you instead of shame crushing you. Lift your head and breathe. The teacher has not left. He's watching to see if you've learned. The stillness before instruction is sacred, because when mercy steps back, it's only so glory can step forward. And the same God who corrects is the one who crowns. Chosen one. Obedience is the bridge between promise and fulfillment. You've prayed for breakthrough, fasted for clarity, and wept for change. But now, heaven waits for your yes. Not a partial yes. Not a convenient yes. But the kind that costs something. The kind that bends your will until it matches God's. There are moments when obedience feels like walking blindfolded across a narrow bridge. You can't see the other side. Yet your spirit whispers, keep walking. That's where faith and obedience meet. Faith believes, obedience moves. You can believe all day long, but until you move in the direction heaven points, the promise remains locked. It was proclaimed in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 22. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. These are not just instructions, they are an invitation to transformation. Heaven's blessings are not hidden behind mystery, they are hidden behind obedience. Obedience often appears small, but shifts everything. Sometimes it's a single apology that unlocks peace. Sometimes it's letting go of something good to make room for something divine. Sometimes it's forgiving the one who never asked for it. You may think, it's not that deep. But heaven sees every act of obedience as a seed that multiplies in unseen soil. There was a time you mistook obedience for sacrifice, but now you understand they are not the same. Sacrifice gives what's convenient to lose. Obedience gives what hurts to release. That's why obedience breaks curses, because it dethrones pride and restores order. It's where your independence bows to divine instruction. You've seen what disobedience costs. The moments of delay that led to regret. The decisions made in haste that left you empty. Yet even those mistakes were grace in disguise. God allowed you to feel the sting so that when obedience called again, you'd recognize its voice. Chosen one. God doesn't need your perfection. He desires your alignment. The outcome has never been your responsibility. Obedience has. When you do what He asks, He takes care of what you can't. The miracle is always waiting on the other side of your movement. Remember when Peter stepped out of the boat? The water didn't solidify under his feet until he moved. Heaven always responds to steps, not hesitation. And just like Peter, you may wobble, you may doubt, but as long as your eyes stay fixed on Him, you will not sink. There is something God has been whispering for you to do, something specific. It might be a conversation you've been avoiding, a change you've been postponing, a step of faith you've been afraid to take. You keep asking for confirmation, but heaven is saying, I already confirmed it when I spoke the first time. Obedience is not about understanding the why, it's about trusting the who. Every time you say yes without needing an explanation, you grow in spiritual authority. Heaven begins to entrust you with deeper revelation because you've proven you'll move even without the full picture. Think of Abraham called to leave his homeland for a destination unnamed. He didn't have a map, only a voice. And yet, that single act of obedience became the birthplace of a covenant that still shapes eternity. That's the power of a willing heart. So, beloved, this is your moment. The atmosphere around you has shifted. The instruction you've been postponing is knocking again. The same Spirit who called you in private now invites you to respond publicly, not for validation, but for activation. Type 444 inches, the comments below. This number represents divine order and the establishment of heaven's pattern on earth. When you write it, you're not just typing digits, you're declaring alignment. You're saying, I choose obedience over comfort. I choose action over hesitation. You are sealing a moment of surrender with a visible sign. It's your silent Amen, your quiet yes. Heaven sees your response, not as an empty gesture, but as a prophetic act, because numbers in Scripture often carried meaning, order, completion, covenant. When you write 444, you're symbolizing all three. Let this be the moment when faith becomes movement. Don't wait for another sign. You are the sign. Your obedience will open doors you've been praying about for years. The provision has already been prepared. It's just waiting for your step of faith to reach it. You were never meant to stay in cycles of almost obedience. The Spirit inside you is stronger than hesitation. The moment you move, angels move with you. The moment you obey, grace accelerates what once seemed impossible. So, chosen one, breathe deeply. Take courage. Step where you've never stepped. Heaven isn't asking you to be perfect, only willing, because the crown always comes after the yes, and obedience is the hand that places it. Chosen one, there is a sacred rhythm to divine justice. The very forces that once seemed to work against you are beginning to shift. Heaven has declared a reversal season, an appointed time when what was meant for harm becomes fuel for glory. You have sown in tears, but now the reaping begins in joy. Every loss that broke you open is being rewritten into restoration. For so long, it felt like life was tilted against you. You watched others rise easily while you fought through resistance at every step. You questioned why your prayers seemed delayed, why doors shut right when hope began to bloom. But God never forgot the equity of your pain. Nothing you've endured has been in vain. It has been accumulating interest in heaven's treasury. And now, the withdrawal begins. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Galatians, chapter 6, verse 9, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." Those words are more than encouragement, they are divine law. Every act of goodness, every moment of faithfulness, every unseen sacrifice is recorded. The timing is not random, the harvest is mathematical. Heaven counts differently than earth, but it always balances the scale. You may feel the first signs of it already, the subtle shift in atmosphere, the unexpected kindness, the sudden peace in areas that once carried tension. These are early signs of divine reversal. You are walking into rooms you once only dreamed of. You are finding favor in eyes that once ignored you. And the beautiful truth is that you didn't force it. Heaven orchestrated it. But understand this: reversals are not given to inflate your ego. They're given to elevate your purpose. God is not rewarding you to make you comfortable. He's positioning you to make you effective. Every restored opportunity carries a responsibility. You are being trusted now to steward blessings without pride, to walk in abundance with humility. Think of Joseph, sold as a slave, imprisoned unjustly, forgotten by those he helped, yet when his reversal came, it happened suddenly. In one sunrise, he was a prisoner. By sunset, a ruler. But what made him ready was not the throne, it was his heart. He learned to see purpose in pain. He learned to forgive before being exalted. That's the pattern of heaven: humility before honor, breaking before blessing. Your story carries the same rhythm. The very pit that tried to bury you has become the platform that will lift you. Every setback has been a slingshot, pulling you backward only to launch you forward farther than you imagined. What looked like endings were actually preparations for entrances. Reversal doesn't always look like replacing what was lost. Sometimes it's receiving something greater that makes the loss finally make sense. The friendship that ended taught you discernment for divine connections. The job that vanished made space for your true calling. The heartbreak that shattered you became the soil for deeper compassion. Heaven never wastes pain. It recycles it into wisdom. Now, as this reversal unfolds, you will notice that your spirit feels lighter, not because everything outside has changed, but because something within you has shifted. You're no longer asking, "Why did this happen to me?" You're beginning to say, It had to happen for me. That change in language is the sound of transformation. Chosen one. Remember this. Restoration is not just about getting back what you lost. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. God is not giving you your old life back. He's giving you a new one that carries the lessons of the old. You are no longer who you were when you entered the storm. You have grown, matured, evolved, and heaven rewards growth with glory. The season ahead will require the same humility that sustained you in suffering. Don't rush to prove you've arrived. Walk softly, speak gently, and move with gratitude. The crown you wear is forged from tears, and its brilliance will remain only if you remember where it came from. This reversal is not a coincidence, it's a covenant. God is restoring balance, honor, and peace to the ones who refused to stop believing. Your endurance has reached heaven's threshold. The same angels that once guarded you in darkness are now preparing a table before you in the light. So, breathe. Beloved, you have stepped into the great turnaround. The story that once wounded you is becoming the very testimony that will heal others. What was meant to break you has built you. And as you walk forward into this divine reversal, know this: you are not just regaining what was lost, you are rising into more than you dared to dream. Chosen one. You have survived the breaking and endured the waiting. You have walked through the wilderness and stood firm in the storm. Now heaven is shifting you from survival into embodiment, from one who merely endures the fire to one who carries its light. This is the transformation of the chosen. You are no longer a survivor. You are a standard bearer. For too long, you saw yourself as the wounded one, the misunderstood, the rejected, the overlooked. You were the one holding broken pieces, praying they'd make sense one day. And now, they do. The fragments have formed a pattern. The ashes have taken shape. What was once pain has become purpose. What was once humiliation has become holiness, as was spoken in the sacred texts of old. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 60, verse 1, Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. When you look into the mirror now, you no longer see brokenness. You see testimony. You see the reflection of one who has walked through fire and learned to glow instead of burn. You see the quiet authority that comes not from power, but from perseverance. The very eyes that once searched for purpose now shine with it. You have become a living message. Your scars speak louder than sermons. Every conversation you have carries the fragrance of redemption. People will not understand how you're still standing, and that's exactly the point. You are meant to confuse logic. You are meant to embody grace. You are meant to show that the God who restores does not just fix what was lost, He transforms what was left. Chosen one. You are now stepping into representation. You are becoming a sign, a living reminder of what happens when faith refuses to die. You carry the mantle of those who endured and didn't give up. When others look at you, they'll see evidence that hope still works. That light still wins. That endurance still matters. You've become a beacon for those still trapped in storms you've already survived. But with that mantle comes weight. Being a standard bearer means carrying responsibility with humility. It means living from overflow, not from emptiness. It means choosing peace when chaos tempts you back, and choosing compassion when bitterness whispers your name. You no longer react to darkness, you regulate it. The atmosphere shifts when you enter, not because you demand it, But because heaven recognizes its own reflection within you, there will still be battles. Yes, but they will no longer define you. They will refine others through you. The same storms that once terrified you will now obey your voice. The authority you carry is not loud, it's steady. It is the calm confidence that comes from knowing you've already won wars unseen. Your testimony is a torch. The way you live, the way you forgive, the way you keep walking, these become sermons without words. And as you continue to rise, you will notice others following your example without even knowing why. That's how light works. It doesn't command, it compels. You have been entrusted with visibility. But remember, true influence is not measured in followers, it's measured in faithfulness. Heaven does not count numbers, it counts impact. Every kind word, every act of compassion, every moment you choose humility over recognition, those are your crowns in eternity. So, walk in this new identity, quietly but boldly. You no longer have to prove your worth. Your presence is proof enough. The same God who refined you in private is now revealing you in public, not for your glory, but for His. You are no longer the one waiting for a miracle. You are the vessel through which miracles will flow. The light on you now carries assignment. It's not just for comfort, it's for calling. Wherever you go, environments will shift, hearts will soften, and hope will awaken because you carry the sound of restoration in your spirit. You have become what you once prayed for, a carrier of divine presence, a reflection of unfailing grace. Chosen one, this is your graduation. The tests are no longer about survival, they're about stewardship. You have passed through the valley, and now you stand on holy ground, bearing the standard of the ones who refuse to give up. The crown is not a decoration, it's a declaration that faith won, love endured, and light prevailed. Walk in it, own it. Let heaven see that the investment of years, tears, and trials was worth it. You are the standard now, the living proof that what God begins, He always completes. Chosen one. Heaven does not just call you to awakening, it calls you to assignment. The time of hiding has passed. The time of merely surviving is over. You have carried the mantle long enough in silence. Now heaven asks you to lift it, to wear it publicly, to walk as one who carries the King's decree. This is the season where the mantle meets the mission. Your story has been preparation for leadership. Every scar has become instruction. Every delay has built endurance. You've been shaped into one who doesn't just speak about faith, you embody it. And now, God is commissioning you to step into the purpose that has been forming quietly beneath your pain. The prophet Elijah spoke as recorded in the first book of Kings. Chapter 19, verse 19. Elijah went from there and found Elisha, son of Shaphat. He was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen, and Elijah threw his cloak. That cloak, his mantle, was more than fabric. It was an invisible transfer of divine responsibility. The moment it touched Elisha, everything ordinary about him became sacred. So it is with you. Heaven's mantle has rested upon your shoulders. You may not see it, but you can feel its weight, the holy urgency that whispers, "You can't stay here." It's the same stirring that interrupts your comfort and pulls you towards something higher. That is not anxiety, it's calling. You are being summoned to lead, not through domination, but through demonstration. The world has seen enough voices shouting truth. What it needs now are lives that live it. You are called to be that example. A living message, written not in ink, but in endurance. You will not just tell people God restores, you will show them what restoration looks like in motion. You are the bridge between heaven's promise and human pain. Your presence carries weight. Every conversation, every decision, every act of grace becomes part of your ministry. Even if no stage or title ever comes, leadership in the kingdom is not about visibility, it's about responsibility. Heaven crowns those who carry others, not those who climb over them. Think of yourself as a lamp. A lamp does not argue with darkness, it simply shines. But to keep shining, it must remain connected to its source. Your assignment is not about performing miracles or chasing validation, it's about staying plugged into divine presence so that your light never dims. The more connected you stay, the brighter your influence grows, and the farther your light reaches. You may wonder if you're ready. You may still feel small, unqualified, or unseen. But every great mission begins in humility. Moses stuttered, Jeremiah doubted, Gideon hid. Each was overwhelmed by the weight of their calling. Yet heaven still said, "Go," because obedience has never required perfection, only willingness. Chosen one. The mantle you carry will attract both favor and friction. Some will be drawn to your light, others will resist it. But don't shrink back. The anointing on your life is not a flame meant to be hidden, it's a torch meant to be shared. You were called to awaken others simply by walking in authenticity. When you speak, speak gently, but with conviction. When you move, move intentionally. Let your love be bold and your humility louder than your words. The way you live will inspire more than any sermon ever could. People will feel heaven through your consistency, your kindness, and your quiet strength. And now, beloved, if this message has resonated with the ache you've been carrying, if something deep within you whispers, "This is me," this is my time, then do something small but sacred. Click like, not as an empty gesture, but as a soft amen, a nod to heaven saying, "I accept the mantle." Share this word, not to broadcast yourself, but to pass the torch. Somewhere out there, another chosen one is doubting their worth. Your share could be the cloak that falls upon their shoulders. And subscribe, not for content, but for connection, to stay within the flow of messages that keep your flame alive, that remind you of who you are when the world tries to make you forget. Lastly, let your heart speak below. Comment something simple, something sincere, perhaps what this mantle means to you, or what season you sense you're stepping into. Your words might be the very confirmation someone else has been praying for. This is not a performance. It's a passing of torches, one light touching another until darkness becomes outnumbered. The mantle is not a title, it's a transmission. And as you carry it, heaven will carry you. Chosen one. Walk forward with steady steps. The mission has begun, and as your light expands, may it draw others home, until every heart that once wandered finally remembers where it belongs. Chosen one. What comes after the calling is not rest, it is refining. When heaven entrusts a mantle, it also releases fire. The kind of fire that does not destroy but purifies. The kind that removes residue from your soul so that only truth remains. This is the sealing fire, the sacred process that ensures what has been birthed in you cannot be stolen, diluted, or corrupted. You may have noticed it already. The intensity has changed. The air feels heavier, the testing sharper, the emotions deeper. It's not regression, it's refinement. Heaven is not angry, it's thorough. God is sealing what He started, fortifying your spirit so that glory can rest on you without breaking you. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 3, He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He will purify the Levites and refine them like gold and silver. This is what the divine fire does. It burns away the unnecessary so that the essential can emerge. It is patient, precise, and personal. Chosen one, you are the silver on heaven's anvil right now. You've passed through trials before, but this one feels different. It feels personal. That's because it is. The refiner doesn't leave the furnace unattended. He sits beside it, watching closely, adjusting the heat with care. He knows when to turn the fire higher and when to cool it. He does not look away until he can see his reflection in the silver. That is what God is doing with you. There are moments when the fire feels endless. When you whisper, "Haven't I been through enough?" But refinement is not about quantity, it's about clarity. Every layer of pride, fear, and doubt is being melted away until your identity shines without distortion. What used to trigger you no longer will. What once controlled you will lose its grip. You are being purified, not punished. This stage of your transformation may not be visible to others, but heaven knows. It is the inner work, the invisible sanctification that prepares you for visible glory. You are learning patience beyond emotion, peace beyond circumstance, faith beyond sight. You are being prepared to carry more than blessings. You are being trained to carry holiness. Refining fire also isolates. The refiner's room is small. Not everyone can stand there with you. The same voices that celebrated your calling may grow silent now. The excitement fades when the heat rises, because refinement is not glamorous. It is lonely, rough, and sacred. But solitude is not abandonment, it's containment. God keeps His finest work private until it's complete. Think of a potter glazing clay. After shaping, he places it into the kiln, not to harm it, but to strengthen it. The same is happening to you. Every prayer, every tear, every quiet surrender in this season is coating you with resilience. When the fire ends, you will not be fragile, you will be fortified. And when you emerge, the change will be undeniable. People will sense something different before you even speak. Your presence will carry peace like a fragrance. Your words will pierce through confusion. And your silence will carry authority. Because the fire does not just change your surface, it alters your essence. Do not fight the flames. Beloved, don't mistake heat for harm. The refiner's touch is steady even when the temperature rises. Every trial you face now is strategic. The delay, the tension, the misunderstanding, it's all part of the final shaping. You are being sealed so that when the wind blows next, nothing can shake what God has established within you. The fire teaches you 3 sacred lessons: how to surrender without resistance, how to trust without proof, and how to love without fear. Once you learn these, you become unshakable. The fire no longer intimidates you, it recognizes you. You become its equal. Soon, you'll look back and realize that this was not the season that broke you, it was the season that branded you. The mark of the chosen is not comfort, it's consecration. Heaven does not send fire to harm its favorites, it sends fire to seal them. And when this refining is complete, you will walk with a quiet confidence that needs no validation. The same flames that once made you tremble will now bow before your faith. You will speak, and atmosphere will shift. You will move, and darkness will flee. Chosen one. The sealing fire is not the end, it's the proof. It's heaven's way of saying, this one is ready. You are stepping out, not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to be, purified, fortified, and carrying eternal flame. Chosen one. This is the final whisper of this message, the sacred charge from heaven to your heart. You've walked through revelation, through silence, through fire and storm. You've seen mercy step back and glory step forward. And now you stand on the threshold of fulfillment. This is the moment when destiny stops being a word and starts becoming your reality. The final charge is not complicated, but it is weighty. Heaven is saying, guard what has been entrusted to you. The light within you is no longer fragile, but it is still precious. What you carry now is not just for your survival, it is for generations. Every word you've heard, every lesson you've endured, every scar you've healed from these are scrolls written on your spirit. You are the living message heaven intends to send into the world, as Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 14. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. The final charge of heaven is this: live as proof. You have already spoken faith with your mouth. Now heaven asks you to demonstrate it with your life. Let your forgiveness preach louder than your pain. Let your peace testify louder than your wounds. Let your endurance declare that grace is not a concept, it's a force. The final charge also carries warning. Do not forget the process. The temptation after victory is to forget the valley that made you wise. Never let comfort erase the memory of your training. Remember the nights when you had nothing but prayer. The mornings when tears were your food. Those memories are not meant to haunt you, they are meant to humble you. They keep the fire pure. God is entrusting you with influence. But influence is not ownership, it's stewardship. Every platform you step on, every heart you reach, every door that opens is on loan from heaven. Treat each moment as sacred ground. The greater your visibility, the deeper your humility must run. Chosen one. This is not an ending, it's an unveiling. The hidden years were your foundation, but this next season will be your elevation. You are stepping into divine rhythm now. Heaven's timing and your obedience have finally aligned. The hesitation that once held you back has dissolved. You are ready not because you have mastered perfection, but because you have embraced surrender. What lies ahead will not be free from storms, but you will no longer fear them. You have learned the language of peace within chaos. You have seen what happens when God whispers in the dark. You now carry a stillness that no circumstance can shake. That is what maturity looks like in heaven's eyes, not absence of conflict, but presence of unwavering trust. Everywhere you go, the unseen will respond. Angels recognize your scent now, the fragrance of one who has walked through refining fire and emerged faithful. You may not always feel different, but the realms do. The mark of the chosen cannot be hidden. Your life has become a lighthouse, calling others to safety. As you move forward, walk in remembrance. Walk in reverence. Walk in rhythm with grace. There will be moments when fear tries to whisper that you are not enough, but that voice no longer holds power. Every accusation has been answered by your endurance. Every doubt has been silenced by your obedience. Heaven's eyes are upon you now, not as a test, but as celebration. You are the vessel. They've waited to release the one who carries both sword and song, authority and empathy, fire and fragrance. You are not at the end of your story. You are standing at its divine continuation. And when you take your next step, whatever it may be, take it with the quiet knowing that you are exactly where you belong. You are the fulfillment of promises whispered generations ago. You are the continuation of prayers prayed by ancestors who never saw the answers but believed they would come through someone like you. Chosen one. This is your final charge. Live as one who knows heaven watches, not to judge, but to rejoice. The crown is already on your head. The glory is already within your chest. The story is still being written, and your obedience is the ink. Walk forward, steady, radiant, and unshakable. The world will change because you dared to say yes. Chosen one. If your spirit has walked through every word of this message, then heaven has done its work. You've heard, you've remembered, and now you know. You are not the same soul who began this journey. Something within you has settled an assurance, a peace, a purpose. The heavens have spoken, and your heart has answered. This is more than a message. It's a meeting point between destiny and awareness. Every sentence was a step, every whisper a bridge. And now you stand, crowned not with gold, but with clarity. Before this moment fades into memory, let your response become your declaration, not for attention, but for alignment. If this word has lit a spark in your chest, if it reminded you of who you are and why you are here, then click like as a sign that you've received what heaven released. It's your quiet amen. Share this message like a lantern passed from one traveler to another. Someone out there is still standing in their storm, waiting for the very words that set you free. You could be the hand that reaches them in the dark. And when you've done that, let your voice join the chorus below. Leave a comment, something honest, something real. Maybe it's a single word of gratitude, a prayer, or a sentence that says, "I remember who I am." Your words might become the echo that keeps another soul from giving up. Finally, subscribe, not as an obligation, but as an act of staying connected to the stream of messages heaven continues to send. This is not the end, it's the continuation of divine conversation. Go in light. Chosen one. The world is waiting for the sound of your yes.